A University of Kansas professor says men who don't vote for Kamala should be. Tim Walz calls to abolish the Electoral College. And celebrity women turn to salmon sperm to recover their lost youth. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. 4 illegal aliens have beaten a Texas woman and robbed her at gunpoint and threatened to cut off her fingers if she did not tell them where her valuables were. Now, that happened because it's a day ending in Y, but it tells you something profound about our whole immigration system. We'll get to that in 1 second. First, though, you need to get your Mayflower cigars. And you have to get, I am on a mission of mercy here, folks, okay? Because you know, there was that little kerfuffle down at the ports, including the port that imports Mayflower cigars, thanks to the longshoremen strike and all. It has disrupted things. Even if the ports had not been closed for even one day, the Mayflower cigars are going to sell out. We've ramped up production dramatically since we launched a little under 1 year ago today. However, if you want your Mayflower cigars for Thanksgiving, if you want your Mayflower cigars 8-count sampler, which is our top seller for Christmas, if you want them to celebrate Trump's victory after the election, God willing, you need to order them now. If it gets to be Thanksgiving, it gets to be Black Friday, it gets to be 3 weeks before Christmas, and we're sold out, then I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want your angry tweets and your angry emails. I'm giving you fair warning. You can also get the travel humidor. You can also get the Mayflower Zycar cutter, which is absolutely fabulous. You can get all great giftables. You can get them now. You must be 21 years old or older to order. Some exclusions apply. You're also going to want to check out Birch Gold. Text Knowles to 989898. Kamala Harris's economic plan is a disaster. Get ready for massive tax hikes, all so she can add almost $2 trillion to a current $2 trillion deficit. You might be thinking it's time to make more of your savings tax sheltered and inflation sheltered. This is where I trust Birch Gold Group to help. Birch Gold will assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just text the word Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to 989898. Get a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just information on fortifying your savings before the crazy really hits. As the exclusive gold partner of the DailyWire for the past 8 years, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, you can trust Birch Gold too. Text Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to the number 989898 for your free info kit today. I myself have a decent chunk of my portfolio in gold, and I'm very happy that I do. Today, in particular, might be a good time to look into diversifying. Text Knowles to 989898. Kamala Harris keeps putting her foot in her mouth. And she puts her foot in her mouth because she's been opening her mouth, and she's opening her mouth because the polls are not improving for her. And the Kamala campaign knows that every single time Kamala opens her mouth, it is perilous and probably counterproductive. However, there's really nothing else that's going to help boost her in the polls because the economy is not good, the migration situation is not good, foreign policy is not good, and then, of course, there are these natural disasters followed by a federal government response, which is terrible. So they've got to send her out there. They kept her away from doing interviews for weeks after she accepted the nomination. Now they're putting her out here, and she keeps fumbling every single time, including in this question that is now making its way around the internet. The Trump campaign is pushing it out there. Kamala Harris was asked who America's greatest adversary is. Her answer was not only wrong, but stupid.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
What a great interview. That interview is the the gift that keeps on giving. So Kamala Harris says Iran is America's greatest adversary. That is just not true. Her evidence of this is that Iran attacked Israel, and that's very bad. It's very bad that Iran attacked Israel, but Israel's not the United States. And Iran is simply not our great. It is an adversary, but would anyone really say that Iran is a greater adversary than China? China, which is making a play to displace America as the global hegemon. Would anyone even say that Iran is a greater adversary than Russia? We fought a Cold War with Russia since the 1940s. And there was a little brief period in the 90s when it cooled down a little, but Russia still has a ton of missiles pointed at us. And we're waging a proxy war with Russia right now in Ukraine. So no, Iran's not our greatest adversary. It's not even really close. Then on top of that, she stepped on the rake because she said, Iran's our greatest adversary. We can't let Iran become a nuclear country. And so the obvious follow-up question is, okay, if you found out that Iran was on the brink of nuclear capabilities, would you attack? And she goes, yeah, it's our greatest adversary, poses the greatest risk to Americans. It is completely unacceptable for Iran to get a nuke, and we won't do anything to stop it. That was her answer. Okay. But then it gets even worse than that, because if Iran really were America's greatest adversary in the whole wide world, then Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a lot of splaining to do as to why they gave Iran $6 billion. $6 billion. Iran has been given more money than that over the broad course of the Obama-Biden to Biden-Harris administration. But just $6 billion comes from a Biden-Harris policy to unfreeze Iranian funds. Just give the mullahs $6 billion for no reason. Well, the real reason is they were bribing Iran to make Iran free some hostages. So you have foreign policy weakness. You have billions of dollars being just handed over to America's supposedly greatest adversary after Biden had already handed over a ton of cash to Iran during the Obama administration. And then you say, after we do that, after we give them a ton of money and we allow them to build a nuclear weapon, that we're not going to bomb them. We're not going to go to war. Absolutely the most perfectly incompetent, ignorant answer I can possibly imagine. Even if it were right, it would make her look terrible. Now, speaking of Biden-Harris administration mismanagement, there is a sheriff, a hat tip to Sarah Carter here for getting this interview, down in the Carolinas, who is helping with some of the recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene. And he's got a little correction for the Biden-Harris administration. Remember, Kamala Harris came out and said, we're sending zillions of dollars over to Ukraine. We're giving thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to illegal aliens who come here, or to people that were flying in from the third world to be here legally. We're going to fly them into places like Springfield, Ohio, and we're going to give them a ton of money and a ton of government benefits. But if you, an American citizen in the Carolinas or East Tennessee or wherever, had your entire livelihood just washed away, you can apply to maybe get $750 in relief funds. And this sheriff points out they can't even really do that.
That lady that's running for president talks about the $750. Well, but all that money you give to Ukraine and all these other people that really want to kill us, don't want to do anything to help us, why don't you just give that money to them? That's who you want to give it to begin with.
And a lot of people have been turned down for the $750. Almost everybody I've spoken to hasn't received any of the funding, and they've been turned down for personal items.
Well, they talked about get on your phone or your computer. Do you not see what the devastation is? They don't have a phone or a computer.
There's nothing up here. There's no communication. I'm going to be posting this later. There's no way to access the internet unless you have a Starlink net. And everybody's...
Thank you, Elon Musk, by the way.
Oh, yes, thank you, Elon Musk.
President Donald Trump, we need you.
What are the... Yes.
Love this guy. This sheriff is a terrific character, just, obviously helping out his community. But the point he's making is absolutely correct. How tone deaf do you have to be? How myopic? How oblivious do you have to be to say to people whose entire homes have just been blown away that they need to get on their phone or get on their computer and request $750. The $750 benefit is so insulting to American citizens as we just hand money out, catch a nickel, catch a dime to everyone around the world. But to say, hey, why don't you just get in your Tesla and drive over to the coffee shop and then pull out your iPhone, devastated flood victims in the Carolinas, and then, and just apply and get your money. This is really, really playing poorly for Kamala. And it's not, the Democrats are going to say, oh, drats, just our luck. Why do all the bad things happen to us? That this extremely deadly, devastating hurricane had to happen on our watch. But this didn't have to be catastrophic for Democrats. Obviously, the real victims here are the people who had their livelihoods blown away or who lost their lives in the hurricane. But even for the Democrats who were looking at this purely as a political matter, this didn't have to be that bad for them. They could have just managed the crisis well. I can't help but notice East Tennessee, which was hit with the hurricane, doing pretty well because there's good government in Tennessee. North Carolina doing poorly, doing much worse. Can't help but notice there's a Democrat governor in North Carolina. The federal government here completely bungling it. Makes the federal government's response to Katrina look absolutely unimpeachable. The problem here is not that a natural disaster befell the Democrats in the lead up to the election. The problem is that the natural disaster revealed the terrible government policies, the absolute incompetence of the president administration. The political problem for them is that the natural disaster revealed them to be who they really are. Now, when you're a conservative, you might want to check out Coin. Go to Coin, COIGN.com, coin.com. We do not have to wait until Election Day to start taking our country back. We can do it right now. Get in the fight with Coin, the conservatives' credit card. Find out more at COIGN.com. Imagine the satisfaction of earning cash back rewards while fighting the lib agenda. Coin works everywhere that Visa is accepted. It comes with a 100% US-based customer service and consumer protections. Not to mention, it's a great-looking credit card. It's bright red with We the People on the front. Get woke out of your wallet. Start shopping with America's conservative card. Apply now at Coin, COIGN.com. Be sure to select DailyWire in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Terms apply. Right now, if you don't want to be purchasing your various goods and services with lib commie money, might as well be using rubles. Go to coin.com, COIGN.com/disclosure for full details. Now, you might say Kamala's handled the government, in as much as she's involved in the Biden-Harris administration, really terribly. However, there is a professor at the University of Kansas who says that if you're a man who won't vote for Kamala Harris, specifically because she's a woman, you should be shot.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
They heard it. It came out. Now, in fairness to this homicidal professor, this belligerently partisan homicidal professor, he did not say, if you're going to vote for Kamala, you should be shot. He did not say, even if you're a man who votes for Kamala, you should be shot. He said, if you're a man who will not vote for Kamala because she's a woman, you should be shot. Which is a horrible thing to say. He certainly shouldn't be teaching students. He certainly shouldn't be teaching students at a taxpayer-funded university. He should get a new career, get a new job, work out his problems, educate himself a little bit. But, I'm not saying he needs to be ostracized from society, but being a professor really is not for him, and he certainly should lose his job over this. However, what of his point? What of his narrow point that he actually made, without any hyperbole, which is, if you are a man who thinks a woman should not be president, who will not vote for a woman simply because she's a woman to be president, you should be shot. What of the people who are voting for Kamala because she is a woman? What about them? There are many people, I don't know how many people total are going to vote for Kamala, but there are many people who will vote for Kamala Harris simply because she is a woman and they believe that a woman should be president. Just like in 2008, there were people who voted for Barack Obama, not because of anything Obama had ever done. He really hadn't accomplished much of anything at all. Not because of any opinion he held. Barack Obama did a great job hiding his opinions and avoiding taking controversial votes. And they voted for Obama simply and strictly because he's a black guy, or half black, I guess, but black enough to suffice to say we want a black president. Now, some people will say, well, it's different. In one case, you're voting for someone because of one of these qualities, their race or their sex. And in the other example, you're voting against someone because of that person's qualities, race or sex. And that it's fine to do the former, it's bad to do the latter. But they're actually the same thing. If you're voting for Kamala because she's a woman, that means you're voting against Trump because he's a man. So does this professor believe that anyone who votes for Kamala because she's a woman and against Trump because he's not a woman, because he's a man, that those people should be shot? No, certainly not. Just as people who are voting for Barack Obama because he's black are implicitly, but necessarily voting against John McCain because he's white, should those people be lined up and shot? No, are you kidding me? If a professor ever said anything like that, it would be an international, and you oppose, if you actually recorded that and publicized that, that would be an international incident. So no, absolutely not. Will this professor in this case face any consequences? Also, probably not. Now, speaking of killing, Sally Field, the actress, remember her? She hasn't been in a lot lately, but she used to be a big actress. Sally Field has just gone viral explaining the intense shame she felt as a result of an abortion she had decades ago, and then uses that experience, bizarrely, to convince people to vote for Kamala Harris.
I found out I was pregnant. Luckily, I had a family doctor who was a friend of the family, and he drove me and his wife and my mother in their brand new Cadillac, to Tijuana. I had no anesthetic. There was a technician giving me a few puffs of ether, but he would then take it away. So it just made my arms and legs feel numb and weird. But I felt everything, how much pain I was in. And then I realized that the technician was actually molesting me. So I had to figure out, how can I make my arms move to push him away? And, so it was just, this absolute pit of shame. And I, then when it was finished, they said, go, 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 like the building was on fire. And they didn't want me there. It was illegal. And fate, something glorious outside of ourselves, whatever you believe, reached in. And a few months after that, I began auditions. I didn't have an agent. I wasn't really an actor. I'd been doing it in high school constantly. And I began auditioning. And by the end of that year, I was Gidget.
By the end of that year, I was Gidget. She says, but she felt this intense shame. What was the shame? Where did the shame come from? That, to me, that is the key to this whole story. Obviously, the experience she went through was traumatic. But why was it traumatic? She says it was traumatic because she felt everything. She was awake the whole time. She saw what was happening. She felt what was happening. At one point, she mentions that she had the impression that the technician was molesting her, which I mean, obviously the technician was in intimate areas killing her child. So it may have appeared that way. He may have actually been doing something additionally perverse. The whole thing is obviously perverse. But was even that, which is so horrifying, would that be the source of the shame? There's nothing shameful about being the victim of a crime. And even if it feels, has all sorts of traumatic feelings associated with it at the time, certainly in retrospect, you wouldn't say it's shameful to be the victim of a crime. The shame obviously comes from the thing she was doing. And she even says that. It was the awareness of the thing that she was doing. She couldn't even go to sleep and pretend like it wasn't happening. She was conscious the whole time that she was killing her child. That's where the shame comes from. And that shame is the exact same whether the abortion is technically legal or officially illegal. It's exactly the same. She says, well, no, it was because we were in a dingy office in Mexico. Abortion mills remain dingy and disgusting and dangerous places. Think of Kermit Gosnell's abortion factory. Well, you might not be able to think of it because it wasn't covered widely in the news. This is probably the worst serial killer in American history, certainly one of them. Filthy office, all sorts of disgusting procedures. This woman talks about being potentially sexually molested. These abortion mills regularly cover up human trafficking, sexual molestation, rape of underage girls, statutory rape. Also, they regularly, there have been undercover videos that just within the last 10 years that have revealed this about multiple abortion mills. So that doesn't distinguish this killing site in Mexico versus a killing site in America under the name Planned Parenthood. The shame is from the abortion. And then look at what she says. Look immediately where her mind goes. She goes, but then after I killed my child, fate came around and I became a famous actress. Right. You sacrificed your child to a demon, and then the thing for which you sacrificed your child, being able to smile on camera and have people applaud you in movie theaters, came true. So yeah, you did get what you wanted. Was that worth it? It's the same. This is absolutely no different from pagan cultures sacrificing their infants to the rain god so that there would be a good harvest. And maybe you do get a good harvest, but it's not worth it. There's still a shame that exists because the natural law is inscribed in every human heart. And you know that it's wrong. You know it's a violation of the moral law. And you know that ends, no matter how good those ends are, never justify evil means. And that shame stays with that woman decades later. I guess that's what's so striking about it to me. She can't bring herself to come to the conclusion that naturally flows from her narrative. But she also can't ignore the shame. You don't need to listen to me, a pro-lifer. You don't need to listen to any number of right-wingers talk about the shame. She's telling you, even Sally Field, even the super left-wing actress who is presently campaigning for Kamala Harris, even she admits, yeah, this shame of killing my kid has stuck with me my whole life. The shame and, it would seem, the regret. Now, changing topics entirely, you should check out Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com, code Knowles. We are always looking for ways to make the most out of every minute, whether it's using the order ahead to skip those endless coffee shop lines or finding sneaky ways to automate the boring stuff. However, mailing and shipping seems to remain in the past. It's a black hole for time and productivity. That is where Stamps.com saves the day. Whether you are running a business, dealing with legal documents, or just trying to get your Christmas cards out before Valentine's Day, Stamps.com is the ultimate time saver. You can handle all your mailing and shipping needs from anywhere, your office, your home, even while you're on the road. All you need is a computer and printer, and get this, they will even send you a free scale. No more guessing games with package weights, and it gets better. With just a few clicks on your Stamps.com dashboard, you can schedule package pickups. That's right. No more lugging boxes to the post office. I love that. It's absolutely phenomenal service that they'll just come and get it from you. Automatically shows you the cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers. It's like having a personal shipping assistant working around the clock to save you money and time. Here's the deal right now. Free up more time for important business at Stamps.com. Stamps.com, code Knowles for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Stamps.com, code Knowles. Speaking of bad things happening in Latin America, Haitian gangs are reportedly recruiting more child soldiers and According to Human Rights Watch, this is on Wednesday, Haitian gangs bolster their manpower by recruiting young boys as child soldiers and young girls as domestic slaves. And, quote, according to Human Rights Watch, hundreds, if not thousands of children in Haiti driven by hunger and poverty have in recent months joined criminal groups where they're forced into illegal activities and face, Human Rights Watch points out, there are no official figures available. They're not great at record keeping down in the failed state of Haiti right now. But human rights and humanitarian organizations and government officials estimate that at least 30% of criminal group members are children. Children participate in criminal activities ranging from extortion and looting to severe acts of violence, including killing and kidnapping. Really horrific stuff. But there's one error in what Human Rights Watch is saying. Human Rights Watch is saying that these horrible activities are being driven by hunger and poverty. This is what the liberals believe. The liberals believe that the causes of terrible things in the world, be it child soldiers or human trafficking or terrorism in the Middle East, that the cause of it is material. It's because Afghanis don't have enough iPads. It's because Barack Obama talked about this stuff during his presidential administration. He said, when people don't have jobs and they don't have iPhones and then they're going to be driven to extremism. No, that isn't true. That manifestly isn't true. In the case of terrorism in the Middle East, the proof that isn't true is that Osama bin Laden, the most famous terrorist maybe ever, certainly in recent centuries, came from one of the wealthiest families in the world. The bin Laden family is worth billions and billions of dollars. Osama bin Laden personally inherited $25 to $30 million. That was decades ago. The drivers of evil and the drivers of virtue, for that matter, are not primarily material. They're not really material at all. There are plenty of very virtuous poor people. There are plenty of very vicious rich people. There are other things going on here in Haiti. Haiti has been a failed state basically for its whole existence, ever since it was ever since the revolution. And it was the only successful slave revolt, I think, ever in history. But ever since then, it's just been a disaster in Haiti. The most prominent religion practiced in Haiti is voodoo. People like sacrificing animals to demons. Okay, Haitians have been in the news lately because of these reports that they're creating all sorts of social problems in places like Springfield, Ohio. So you just read the story. First thing you think probably as an American is, okay, if these Haitian gangs with reports of cannibalism throughout the country are recruiting child soldiers and female and little girls, are these really the people we should be importing into our country? Kamala Harris brought 300,000 of these people into our country. Is that wise? Is that prudent? Is that going to even forget about protecting Americans, which Kamala Harris has no interest in doing? Even if you want to just improve the lives of Haitians, is that really going to help Haiti? In the long run, if you take 300,000 Haitians, you drop them into places like Springfield, Ohio, in the long run, that doesn't improve the life of really any Haitians. You consider all of the Haitians, generations past, present, and into the future, that doesn't help Haitians, really. The way to help Haiti is to fix Haiti. I'm all for helping other countries improve their own countries, but you can't absorb every single country into the world. You can't completely obliterate America's borders and remain America, then America just doesn't exist. And you especially can't help any of these people by bringing them to our country or by going to help them in their countries. You can't help any of them if you don't understand the real causes of these problems. If you, like a big lib, following Marx's economics, think that everything basically is just material and that stuff is all that really matters in history, if you try to fix that, then you're going to give a bunch of iPads to people who practice voodoo and their lives are not going to improve. Not solving any problems. Seems to be a theme for Kamala Harris. Now, speaking of people coming into our country, 4 illegal aliens have beaten a Texas woman, then robbed her at gunpoint, and then threatened to chop off her fingers if she didn't tell them where her valuables were. We know these guys, 4 alleged illegal aliens. This was in Dallas. This raises a question about our immigration system. It's not that story is surprising. This is not exactly a man bites dog story. Illegal aliens do this to Americans in our country all the time. But what's interesting about the story is what it says about the immigration system. What's interesting about the story is that the story is not particularly newsworthy. We expect stories like this. We don't bat an eyelash, really, when these stories crop up. Which brings us to the duck test. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? Let's apply the duck test to our immigration system. We're told that our immigration system is supposed to keep people out of the country, people who aren't supposed to be here, and to allow some people in, but only in a way that will allow them to assimilate and become part of the great melting pot of America where diversity is our strength and yada, yada, yada. In reality, though, all these bad people keep getting in. Millions and millions of people whom we are told are not supposed to be here just keep coming in. This has been going on for years. It's gotten particularly bad under the Biden-Harris administration with Kamala Harris as the border czar, but this has been a problem going back decades that sometimes moderately improves under Republican administrations, but broadly it's just, in the long run, it's gotten a lot worse. Which means that the actual purpose of our immigration system is not to keep the bad people out and to keep Americans safe. The purpose of our administration, of our immigration system rather, is a managed invasion, a lightly managed invasion of our country, specifically across the southern border, but through other ports of entry too. That's it. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, most likely. If our immigration system doesn't do the things that it says it's supposed to do for 60 years now, and it does do all these other things that it's supposedly not supposed to do, then it's probably what it's actually doing is what it's for. It's a duck. Which means that the Democrats have one point. The Democrats and the squishes have one point that a lot of conservatives don't want to grant them. The liberals and the squishes, they say, we need comprehensive immigration reform. The conservatives will say, we just need to shut down the border and build a wall. And they'll say all sorts of things that we've tried to do and that manifestly don't work. Not because walls don't work, but because our system simply will not allow the wall to be built. Because our system simply will not keep the bad people out. It won't happen. It hasn't happened for 60 years. So when the liberals say we need comprehensive immigration reform, they're right, actually. Now, when the liberals say we need comprehensive immigration reform, what they mean is we need to let more people in. We need to give amnesty to the people who are here. We need to put the people who are here on a pathway to citizenship. We need to... They say the reason our immigration system is broken and doesn't work is because we've only taken in millions and millions of people instead of millions and millions and millions of people. They want more. But we do need the comprehensive immigration reform because the system is not achieving and has not been able to and probably will never achieve what it's supposed to do. So any reform, and I think conservatives should keep this in their minds, any comprehensive immigration reform that would increase the number of migrants that we accept is completely unacceptable. Any comprehensive immigration reform that would grant amnesty to the illegal aliens already here, completely unacceptable, dead on arrival. Kamala Harris loves talking about how Trump impelled members of the House of Representatives to kill a great comprehensive immigration bill. Right, Trump did do that. That's completely correct. Trump killed a Democrat immigration bill because the Democrat immigration bill would have made the migration problem worse. In principle, the Democrat administration, Biden and Harris, with Harris as the border czar, at any moment could curtail immigration easily. That's the law of the land today. The Biden-Harris administration, with Harris as the border czar, is not enforcing the law, which is one reason that Republican congressmen pointed out, and Trump pointed out, you don't need a new law. You already have the laws, and you're not enforcing the laws that are already on the books, so why should I trust you to enforce any future law? You guys are like Lucy with the football, you Democrats. And he's totally right about that. But furthermore, the supposed comprehensive immigration reform that the Democrats were proposing would have made the problem worse. It would have caused more illegal aliens to get into the country. So that's obviously dead on arrival. But we have to change the way we think about this. We can't just keep putting our heads in the sand and say, well, no, we just really need to be serious about the border. We just need to build the wall a little bit higher. No, it doesn't. The system doesn't work that way. This goes back to the Hart-Celler Act of 1965. Goes back to the last time we had comprehensive immigration reform. No little working around the edges is going to overcome that. The vast majority of Americans, when you phrase the question in a way that isn't partisan, tell you that they want to drastically reduce all immigration, legal and illegal. So we got to do that. Good. Let's have comprehensive reform. Let's give the people what they want. Let's drastically reduce the number of migrants. I mentioned yesterday on the show, there was this Afghani national who just got caught trying to plan a terror attack for Election Day. And I said, how'd this guy end up in the country? How'd this guy, Nasir Ahmad Tawadi, whatever his name is, how did he end up in Oklahoma? That's not exactly a traditional Oklahoman name. Well, we have our answer now. Tawadi, quote, entered the United States on September 9th, 2021 on a special immigrant visa and is currently on parole status pending adjudication of his immigration proceedings. Okay, Biden and Harris brought him over. That's how he's here. He shouldn't be here. Biden and Harris brought him over. And why did Biden and Harris bring him over? Because the Biden-Harris administration completely bungled the American pull out of Afghanistan and gave the country back to the Taliban after 20 years of American fighting. That's why. He was here intentionally. It was a direct consequence of the Biden-Harris policy. And don't try to just pin Afghanistan on Biden. Kamala Harris has bragged. She was the last person in the room when Biden decided on his plan to pull out of Afghanistan. Complete disaster, directly attributable to Kamala Harris. Over the past 2 years, the DailyWire, has collaborated with Dr. Jordan B. Peterson on a collection of groundbreaking series, such as his Mastering Life collection. His newest series, Depression and Anxiety, Dragon, Monsters and Men, Marriage, and more. A new series and on negotiation and success is coming this fall. Become a Daily Wire Plus member for unlimited access to Dr. Peterson's incredible collection today at dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Jordan at checkout for 35% off your new annual membership. That is dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from Steve Kilgore, 27, who says, reminder, take your elderly relatives/grandparents to the polls. Make a day out of it. Take them out to lunch and then go vote. It'll be a great way to connect with them while saving this country. That's a great point. However, please don't take your dead relatives out to the polls because your dead relatives are guaranteed to vote for Kamala. So make sure your grandparents is good, but make sure they're on the side of living because then I think they're going to be more likely to vote for Trump. Speaking of systems and Democrat radicalism, Politico is reporting that Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate, has just insisted upon an extraordinarily radical policy, which is to abolish the Electoral College. This is something Democrats have kicked around in recent years. It's not exactly new, but it is radical. It would be a rewriting of our Constitution. Some would say it's a threat and an attempt to overthrow our sacred democracy. Tim Walz, according to Politico, said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go because I'm a big, stupid, dumb, idiot knucklehead. No, he didn't say the last part, but he has reaffirmed the knucklehead thing, but in separate interviews. Here he just said, I think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go. We need a national popular vote that is something, but that's not the world we live in. Do we all know that? I don't know that. I don't think so. I don't think we need a national popular vote. That is not the world we live in. I don't think we need one of those. I don't think all of us know the Electoral College needs to go because I read the founders of our country and I read the framers of the Constitution, and they make really good arguments as to why we have an Electoral College in the first place. And then I look at how polities have fared over the centuries and the millennia, and I notice that radical democracies tend not to fare very well. And this is actually the reason that our framers gave us a country that is more of a mixed system. It's got a democratic element, but it's also got an aristocratic element. It even has a kind of monarchical element. And it has a separation and balance of powers. And sounds to me, for all this talk about the threat to our sacred Constitution and our sacred democracy and all the rest, that really the threat is coming from people like Tim Walz and Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Why do we have an Electoral College? An Electoral College is a protection against the tyranny of the majority. The Electoral College is a protection against civil war. Okay, if we get rid of the Electoral College, that's going to, I'm not even convinced that Republicans couldn't win in that situation. Democrats sometimes make that claim as a kind of cope to delegitimize their opponent's victory, to deny the results of the election in a generic way. Because if there were no Electoral College, campaigning would just be totally different. If there were no Electoral College, Trump would spend all of his time in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco, or places that he would never visit now, or would minimize his visits to now, because he's not going to win the state of New York, he's not going to win the state of California, he's not going to win the state of Illinois. So if the rules were different, yeah, people would play the game differently. And it might well be the case that Republicans would win even in that system. But part of the reason that system's not fair is we don't want just 3 liberal cities to decide who the president is. And it's actually a protection not only for justice, for our particular system of government, it's a protection against civil war. One of the reasons that the South seceded in the lead up to the Civil War is because they had no effect on the presidential election. They could see that their political power was totally disappearing because Lincoln didn't even really ballot in the southern states in the 1960 election. It's not that Lincoln didn't appear on the ballot because the elections were just conducted differently than they are today, and the parties were the ones that provided the ballots. But the South uniformly could not vote for Abraham Lincoln, and he could become the president. Well, okay, now the South has no political power whatsoever. So think about what happens if you get rid of the Electoral College. You get a much more egregious version of that situation where a handful of cities pick the president, and then the rest of America, the vast majority of the rest of, basically, statistically, the entire geography of America has no say in it whatsoever. Furthermore, one last defense of the Electoral College, the Electoral College also reduces the opportunity and the effect of election fraud. Because you might have some crooked machines there in Philadelphia or maybe in New York or Los Angeles or certainly in Chicago. But it's not going to have this outsized effect because it doesn't matter how many ballots some hypothetical Democrat machine boss can manufacture in Chicago. Illinois only has so many electoral votes. Democrats have done a pretty good job of rigging the Electoral College because illegal aliens are counted for purposes of representation in Congress, and the Electoral College is based on the number of representatives. So they've actually done a good job by flooding the country with foreign nationals into their states. They've done a pretty good job of helping themselves out. However, even so, the Electoral College provides a pretty good ballast against election fraud. But of course, the Democrats don't want any protections against election fraud. They want to commit it. Speaking of disreputable men around Kamala Harris, the Daily Mail has a new exclusive, a new scandal involving the second gentleman and would-be first gentleman, not much of a gentleman if you ask me, Doug Emhoff. Headline exclusive, Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, faces explosive new allegations from his time at a top LA law firm. I won't take you through all of the allegations here, but it's basically that when he was a bigwig at a big corporate law firm, he was nasty to the women. And he would pick his secretaries based on how hot they were, and he would reward female employees if they would flirt with him, and he would punish them if they didn't flirt with him. And he was just kind of a pig, basically. He was nasty. He would yell expletives at women and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't know if any of these allegations are true. I'm just reading the reporting here. But I can't help but notice it does sound in character for him, because the previous allegation that we heard just a week or so ago was that Doug Emhoff smacked his girlfriend around in public because he was jealous that she might have flirted with a valet attendant or something. And this was attested to by multiple witnesses, albeit anonymous. Then before that, the allegation was that Doug Emhoff, when he was married the first time around, knocked up his nanny, and then the nanny never gave birth, so which leads to all other sorts of questions and awful conclusions the one might draw. So this wouldn't exactly be out of character for him. And my point isn't even to knock Doug Emhoff. I don't care that much about Doug Emhoff as a political matter. Why is there so little reporting of this? If you listen to this show, you might have heard the allegations against Emhoff. But if you are the kind of person who just watches the nightly news or only reads the New York Times, you probably haven't heard much about this at all. And isn't that so shocking? It's really not shocking to me because this is the same thing they did with Bill Clinton. You had the feminists from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s. 90s was kind of peak feminism. Talking about, I am woman, hear me roar. Woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Enough of these pigs, down with the patriarchy. And then the Democrats nominate Bubba Bill Clinton, this guy who never met a woman he didn't lust over. This guy who was accused of rape by Juanita Broderick. This guy who, I think it's been proven without a question, has been a huge pig when it comes to women. And was an unrepentant pig when it comes to women. And the feminists all got in line. They all got in line for this guy. Now we've had a repeat of this with the Me Too movement. Remember the Me Too movement? Time's up. Enough is enough. And it was this PR movement out of Hollywood where basically all these liberal Democrat guys like Doug Emhoff, were doing horrible things to women, terribly selfish and abusive things. Even if they weren't illegal, they were nasty and disgusting. In some cases, they were illegal. And the women said, enough is enough. And all those women are going to vote for Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff, who knocked up the nanny, who was accused of beating his girlfriend in public, and who apparently was exactly the kind of pig that they pretend to inveigh against. It's all just fake. The whole thing. It's why I have absolutely no quarter for the Me Too movement, for the feminism of Gloria Steinem and all the kind of people who backed Bubba Clinton. Yet again, I have not been able to get to that really important story among celebrity women, the salmon sperm facials. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we just don't have to get to that story. Maybe I'll try to avoid it, but it could come up tomorrow. Now we've got something much more important about how to have a good family, how to have good relations between the sexes, how to have a good society with one of my good friends, the Hungarian ambassador to the Holy See, Archduke Edward Habsburg. But if you want to see that interview, you got to become a member. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.